Alright, hello once again and welcome back. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And I'm going through this MVC3 MusicStore application that's online in Microsoft, and we're trying to upgrade it and update it so that it works in MVC5. We've gone through part 1, which was our overview and where we set up the project. We're now going to go into part 2 on controllers. Alright? So this is at the same thing at the beginning of each one of these. So I'm not going to go over any of that except that part 2 covers controllers. All right. So as the author says here, with traditional web frameworks, an incoming URL is mapped to a file on disk. For example, a request like this is going to be processed by a file like this. All right, an ASPX file, or a one like this, which is PHP, will be processed by a PHP file. Well, MVC does it a little bit differently. As mentioned here, rather than mapping the URL to a file, it maps the URL to a method that has been written for a class. All right, the methods, as mentioned, are called controllers. And notice here's the author's definition. Now, I should mention that the author here is John Galloway. I'm not going to click that, all right? But I should just mention this, all right? ASP.NET MVC book by John Galloway. All right, and this is it here. Professional ASP.NET MVC5. All right, so why am I going through the trouble of showing you this? There's actually a method to my madness, if you don't mind. All right, so there it is. It's 3111, it says, fine. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in this, free PDF. And what you'll notice, and I don't know which one of these it is, but I think it's that one, but I could be wrong, that what this will do, and it'll take us, well, it's going fast this morning, I'm the only one here probably, so. It's an 812-page book. And in fact, this is the wrong one. This is not his book. I believe this is the book by Freeman. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's look at the table of contents. Nope. Yep, this is the wrong book. So why would I have gotten the wrong book? John Galloway, free ASP.NET book. Well, it says here professional ASP.NET. The other one was Pro. See, that's the one that we were seeing. That's by Adam Freeman, I believe. This is the one that we want, professional ASP.NET 5 first edition. That's interesting. So I'm going to grab this, keep this up here. Sorry, I don't mean to be wasting your time. But what I'm trying to show you in my own way, site cannot be reached. Lovely. This is the wrong one again, I think. Yeah, this is not it. Doggone it. Well, what I'm trying to show you, not in a very good way, is that if you look hard enough, you can find his book online. And hopefully this is it. There we go. 620 pages, a bit dated. I think it's got a 2015 date on it. Let's see. 2014, which means it was written in 2013. All right, which means it's almost 5 years old. But you can see what's in here. It's got a lot of good stuff. It's free. All right, and if you're interested, I'll just put this up here, and I'm not going to, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time on this. So it's a pretty big URL, so let me cut that down. All right. So it is at http://www.ebooksbucket.com/others/professional-ads-matson-david-will-son-matson-david-matson-dash-mbc5-galway-john-matson-david-will-son-brad-allen-k-scott.pdf. All right. A lot longer spent on that than I was planning on, but let's jump into controllers. All right. So controllers are responsible for processing the incoming HTTP request, typically, again, a URL that's been entered in by the user at the browser, handling the user input, retrieving and saving data, determining the response to send back to the client. Such things as displaying HTML, downloading a file, or whatever. So, again, what you're going to find as we go through this is I may have to make some changes because the project, these instructions that are here are based off of ASP.NET MVC3. Since we're using ASP.NET MVC5, some things have changed. So I want to right-click on controllers, select Add Controller. All right. So I want to come in here. Let's go back into our Solution Explorer. Notice there's nothing in our controllers folder. Right mouse click, choose Add, choose Controller. All right. Again, I'm just following the steps as they're laid out in this document. This will bring up the controller dialog. All right. We're going to choose an empty controller. I think that's what we're supposed to do. All right. But ours doesn't look like this because it has changed over time. And it says this will create a new file called homecontroller.cs. Let's make sure that happens. So we're going to come in here. We're going to choose empty controller, click add, and we want this to be called home controller. Going to hit enter. Now you'll notice that once it gets done, that in our controllers folder, we will now have a homecontroller.cs file. And there it is. And there it is. All right. Here's the using statements. I do want to mention, okay, that we had similar statements to this in C#. Next semester, when we get into Java, we will be using what's called an import statement, which does the same thing. What these are is they are bringing in libraries. All right. They're code methods, etc., that have been written so that we're able to use them. We're also using namespace. So our namespace is MusicStore.controllers. We've got a namespace, so we're able to say things directly. If we didn't have a namespace in here, if we just had this, we'd have to constantly be saying MusicStore.controllers.something. Now we don't have to do that. All right? So let's take a quick look. So the author's got what? Using system, system collections generic, system links, system web, and system web MVC. So that's identical. That's a good start. All right. Then we've got our namespace, ours Music Store, because they told you to call it MVC Music Store. Public class home controller. This colon means that it inherits from. So home controller inherits from the controller class. Well, we've only got one. We don't have that extra comment there. But we've got get home, and we don't have a slash there. Public action result index, return view. That's it. Okay. So ours looks virtually identical to the one that's shown there. Okay. To start as simply as possible, let's replace the index method with a simple method that just returns a string. So what I want to do is I want to very quickly go over and bring up this. Again, I'm being methodical. I am being unbelievably slow here on purpose. All right, so okay, and let me make this a lot bigger so we're able to see it. Pump it up to about 36. That's good. Let me hit enter a few times here. All right, so this is what we got by default. This says that when we type in, all right, the home controller, it's going to run the index file by default, and it's going to return a view. So it expects that we have a view. We'll get to that in a later lesson. All right, but we're saying that rather than returning an action result or a view which is of type action result, we're going to return a string, and that string is hello from home. All right. So I'm going to grab that code. Again, we are told change the method to this and change the return statement to this. All right. So the method should now look like this. So let's take a gander. Let's go in here. So we're going to change that. In fact, let's not even change anything. Let's just comment it all out. All right. So we'll put a comment here that says original code below. How's that? All right. And now we're going to come in here and we're going to put that in. So in other words, now when we bring up this home controller, it should just say to us, have a string that says hello from home. All right. There's a few problems with doing this. Not that it'll be erroneous, but there's problems with doing it. So it says, let's run the application. And they give you different ways that you can run the application. All right. We know the easiest way to run the application because there are several ways of doing it. All right. So I'm going to jump back here. I'm going to do a save all. I think that's always a good idea. Since it's the first time, I'm going to do a build solution. Give it a couple seconds, and hopefully that worked okay. Cannot find, that's giving me a bunch of errors. They're all on line 68. Well, that's interesting. And they're all on this index.d.tfs file, which I've never seen before. Wow. Okay. I'll go back to here. Public string index, return hello from home. I'm trying to see something that I've done that should make this not work. But we're going to find out now. So let's, if I get an error, doggone it. Cannot find undefined. Cannot find name record, cannot find name undefined. This does not look like the type of file that I should be monkeying with. This file only declares the public portions of the API. It should not define internal pieces such as utils or modifiers. I have never seen this file before. What I'm wondering is if I come here and comment this out, all right, if that will fix it. I don't know. So I'm going to go back to my home controller here. I'm going to right mouse click. In fact, I'll just click on here. I'm going to do a save all. Probably should rebuild, but I'm going to do this. It's doing something. Again, it's running from my local host, and it's giving me a random port. You've seen that kind of stuff before. Still says it's loading. I'm hoping that it's going to give me the message that says what that is. Hello from home. That's what we wanted. All right. There you go. Now, I don't know. I mean, that was a little scary. Removing that, I don't know. Hopefully I didn't hurt anything, or I won't hurt anything down the line. Okay, it says, okay, that was pretty quick. We created a new website, added a 3-line function, and we've got text in a browser. It's a start. And they talk about the random port. We've talked about that before, so I'm not going to go on with that. Okay, we added a simple home controller that implements the home page of our site. Let me just mention right now that what we're doing is not MVC. What does that mean, Jeff? Well, by putting this statement inside of our controller, we are using the controller as both the controller and we're using it as the view. There is no model right now because we're just giving a flat string. But we're doing everything in the controller, so this is not the way you should be doing MVC. I just wanted to mention that. All right. So we added the simple home controller. Our MusicStore will support 3 different functionalities. It will eventually have a listing page of all the music genres that we have in our MusicStore. We will have a browse page that will list, we will pick a genre and it will give us all the albums that exist for that genre. Then we'll have a details page that will show the information for a specific album. We will end up creating several controllers, but we're going to start here by creating or adding a store controller. So I already have stopped it. So I'm going to come in here and add a new controller. All right. So I'm going to come in here. I am going to right mouse click on controllers, do another add controller. We will again have this be empty. And we will call this, double check, but I think it's store controller. Store controller. Okay. So let's get back to that. Choose that and add. We will now have another file over here that says store controller. That's good. All right. And let's jump back into here. All right. Our store controller already has an index method. We'll use this method to implement our listing page that lists all the genres in our music store. So that'll be added later. We'll also add 2 additional methods to implement 2 other scenarios that we want our store controller to handle. Browse, so we're able to browse through our store, and details, so that we're able to look at the details. All right. So these methods within our controller are called controller actions. It says we've already seen them with the home controller's index method. Notice these methods, their job is to respond to URL requests and determine what content should be sent back to the browser or to the user that invoked the corresponding URL. All right. We'll start our store controller implementation by changing the index to return the string hello from store index. We'll add similar methods for browse and details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything that's in here, copy it to the clipboard, then I'm going to go back into our project here. I'm going to grab all of this, and again, this is going to say, as we did before, original code. And I'm going to comment out the next 4 lines. All right. Then underneath here, I'm going to put in that. All right. So we now have what? Again, I grabbed the stuff right from the handout itself. All right. So you notice we now have, we now have 3 methods in here. Our index, which returns a string that just says hello from store.index. Our browse, which returns a string that says hello from store browse. And our details, which returns a string that says hello from details. These will be modified as time goes on. Good time to save. Jump back into our project here. All right. Run the project again and browse to the following 3 URLs. Store, store browse, and store details. I'm going to actually go to 4 URLs. But first, let's go back in here. Let's try to do another build. Hopefully I don't get an error. I had to comment that line out. Not sure why. All right. And let's run it. That's from the last, or the first lecture that I did on this. So remove that. There we go. All right. So let's run this. And we may have to do some wiggling around with it. So there was the hello from home. All right. So what do we want to put in here? According to this, we want to put in store, store browse, and store details. All right. Let's get rid of all these other ones that we're running here. I guess it was just one. So let's change this to store. And we get hello from store index. We could also, because it runs that by default, we could have put index there. And again, we get hello from store index. All right. You'll see that. All right. So we also want to put in here, whoops, I don't know why I keep doing that. We also want to put in store browse and store details. So let's change that to store browse. And it should change our message here. And it does. And store details. And it changes the message again. All right, that's a good start. All right. All right, it says, that's great, but these are just constant strings. Let's make them dynamic so they take information from the URL and display it in the page output. First, we'll change the browse action method to retrieve a query string from the URL. Remember, a query string is something so that if I come out here and I go out, let's see if we can find one. Let's see. The query string is everything that comes after that question mark. So it's got information about what you're working with, for lack of better words. All right. So we're going to do this by adding a genre parameter in our action method. So we're going to add another parameter. All right. And when we do this, as it says, MVC will automatically pass any query string or form post parameters. Name this. So we want to change this. So we want our browse to now look like this. So let's go back into our program. All right. Here's our browse. So I'm going to put a message here. Oh, program's still running. All right. And I'm just going to add some white space here, that's all. So this is going to say what? Original browse method. All right, and again, comment out, comment out, comment out. All right, and comment out. All right, now let's put the new one. New and improved, whatever you want to call it. All right, so now what do we have here? Well, let's try to fix this up a little bit so it's easier to read. All right, we're creating a variable called message. This is calling HTTP utility. You can look this up if you want to, but the HTTP utility has got some helper functions for the hypertext transfer protocol, all right, such as HTML encode. What that function is designed to do is it's supposed to stop what's called SQL injection into your program. And what that means is it's going to check whatever we pass into it to make sure it's not any evil JavaScript, for example. All right, so we've got this. And they explain that, okay? It says, so now let's browse. So let's run this and go to store browse, and we're going to put in genre equal disco. We're hard coding our stuff in here right now. Later, we're going to create a database. If this works, this should say store.browse, comma, genre equal disco. So let's try that. Again, good time to save everything. Let's run it. Ideally, we're not going to get any error messages. Now this is going to just go to the home page. That's why you get the hello from home. So we're going to add to this at the end. Oh, I guess we already have the slash there. Store browse genre equal disco. So instead of saying hello home, store.browse genre equal disco, which is exactly what it told us we were supposed to see. So we're right on schedule. Let's next change the details action to read and display an input parameter named ID. ID is a special parameter that we'll talk about at another time. So unlike our previous method, we won't embed the ID in the query string. Rather, we'll put it right in the URL itself. All right, so we're going to change. So I'm going to copy this. And this is the one that we added. So this is, again, I've got to remember to stop my run. We're going to come in here and we will put in version 2 of browse method. And again, I'm going to comment all this out. Oh, it's a blank line, so it doesn't really matter. And we're going to go and pop in the new one, which is right here. So how did this change? We have a parameter being passed in here where previously we had a string come in. Now we have an integer ID. That ID is going to be appended onto the end of our program. All right. So previously it said store browse. I guess we didn't want to change the browse. It's the details we wanted to change. Doggone it. All right. So let's get rid of this. My error. It's one of the reasons I do these before I do them with the class. All right. So this, the details is the one. So I'm going to change this to original store details method. All right, and again, I'm going to come in here, comment out, comment out, comment out, comment out. And now I should be able to drop that in here. There we go. So we want to type in something like this. Why am I getting an error? It says it already has something with that definition. No, I already put it in here, so that's fine. There. All right, so we want to come in when we run this, then we want to put in this. Okay, so let's save all and let's run. There's our hello from home. We want to change that. We want to add on to the end here. Store details 5. Hit enter. Store.details ID equal 5. Is that what we were supposed to get? Store.details ID equal 5. So what I like about this is the author always goes back and does a recap. So they say we've created a new ASP.NET MVC project. In Visual Developer, we discussed the folder structure. We learned how to run the website. We created 2 controller classes, the home controller and the store controller. We added action methods. So I'm going to grab these 2 pieces of information here. All right. And before we go on, let's go back to here. In fact, let's stop our run. And let's do a save all. It's never a bad idea to do that. I'm going to go over to Team Explorer. And I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to say 1. Created 2 controller classes, and those would be home controller and store controller. So that's the first thing that we did. And number 2, added action methods to each controller, all right, which respond to URL requests and return text to the browser. That's all we've done so far. So we created two controller classes here, home controller and store controller, which are homecontroller.cs and storecontroller.cs. We added action methods. Again, I kept the old stuff in here so you can see what's changed. All right, and I'm going to do a commit all. All right, so we've now gone through two steps of this process. When we come back in just a couple minutes, probably be the last one I have time to do today, we'll go into part 3, and in part 3 we're going to talk about views and models. All right, so I'll be back with that presentation shortly. Some of these are going to be longer than others, so they may require two different tapes, a part 1 and a part 2. All right, back soon.